there's a huge tax liability if you are muddling your funds. So it could mean that you are paying more in taxes. It could mean that there are tax violations that you are guilty of. It also could mean like the inverse, that you're not getting tax breaks as a business owner. Certain industries and certain places have specific tax breaks. Certain types of businesses, have different tax burdens. And so just from a financial perspective, separating those funds just means that you're able to pay less, potentially pay less taxes, write off certain things, certain activities that you won't be able to do that if you don't have a dedicated account for it. When you are applying for any kind of credit product, whether that's a credit card, a loan, a merchant cash advance, one of the first things that you're asked for is your bank statements. And if you don't have that, again, there's no history of your business practices.
You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. So we always like to get familiar with who we're talking to. So if you could just share a little bit about who you are, what's it that you do, and how did you get where you are today?
Okay, so my name is Kelly Ifill. I am the founder and CEO of Guava. We are a growth engine for Black small businesses. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm Trinidadian. It's very important to me, especially around Carnival time.
Yes.
And I'm, passionately rooting for Black people all the time. And so that really is how I got here. I'm sure we'll go into my backstory a little bit more later on.
Yes. So I'm excited to have you here because you've created this amazing platform, Guava, and I want to talk about what you're doing, but also in the realm of banking on your business, because I see your passion in all the work that you do for our community. And we're going to talk about how we can build a strong financial core. So let's dive into first understanding for my audience, understanding where we are. So the racial wealth gap and the importance of really banking Black. So when you think about it, what is the racial, for somebody who's listening, we like to break it down on the Black to Business podcast. So what's the racial wealth gap and how does it specifically impact Black entrepreneurs who are starting their businesses?
Yeah, so the racial wealth gap, by definition, really is the disparity of wealth or median net worth, household net worth between a Black family and a white family. And the numbers are huge. So the average net worth of a Black family is 1/10 that of a white family. I think the numbers are 17,000 to 170,000. And so the way that impacts a Black entrepreneur starting out means, really simple things like seed capital, right? Whether you're starting a venture-backed company or a barber shop, a yoga studio, whatever it is, you need some money to get started and get off the ground. Often you'll find that Black entrepreneurs are using their, own personal savings, their credit cards, which are extremely expensive. Access to capital isn't there for us. That net worth, or lack thereof comes into play when you're trying to raise a friends and family round. You don't have people who can invest in you. We often don't have rich uncles to fund our ideas. And so it'll take longer oftentimes for us to get off the ground, to prove out our idea, often happening, on nights and weekends while you work your 9-to-5 job, versus someone that has a bigger safety net, a bigger financial cushion to be able to take the kind of risk that is inherent with entrepreneurship and starting a business.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, I love that. And thank you so much for breaking that down for us. And I also, now let's dive into elaborate a little bit more on how the lack of access to adequate financial resources really perpetuates this wealth gap.
Absolutely. So when you think about wealth creation, a huge lever for wealth creation is entrepreneurship, right? It is building a business that generates revenue and profit that you can grow your family, grow your wealth, right? It is valued at something. Sometimes you can sell it, you can get more investment, right? If an entrepreneur doesn't have access to capital, that is like a stymie on that business, right? That business cannot grow to be as big as it could potentially be. Capital is like it's a supercharger for businesses, right? It allows you to get more inventory so that you can do the big retail, be on the shelves of Target and Sephora, right? Look, those kinds of things take capital, and without access to that, Black entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who don't have that kind of those resources don't have access to those growth opportunities. Without growing your business, like, you're not able to realize the real wealth creation that comes with being an entrepreneur. And you see that so often where Black entrepreneurs, the businesses are smaller, the revenue is not as much as those of like their counterparts. And so like that's really what is at stake here.
Yes. And so in your view, Kelly, why is it essential for Black entrepreneurs to support and collaborate within our own communities, especially in the context of banking?
It's funny when you asked that question, and it made me think automatically of just kind of like the historical nature of Black entrepreneurship. Like, we have been building businesses since we got here, however we got here. We've been creating, enterprise. We've been capitalizing off of our skills and our genius for generations, and in that have sought support of our communities. Like, that's inherent to Black communities and Black culture, that we ride for each other. Like, we are going to try to be a patron of a Black business. It's kind of gives us pride often. There's a lot of communal support in that. And when it comes to banking Black or, utilizing Black-owned financial institutions, I think that kind of pride and kind of community-centric ethos is there, but more practically, having a deeper relationship with a financial institution is beneficial to that business owner. Like, there is value in doing that. There's value in knowing who the person is that's looking at your loan application and them understanding your business intimately, right? And I think that's often lost when we are talking about large banks that don't have the community ties or the connections to the people that they're serving, or the account holders. So like, that's the value there. Often Black banks will, be a part of the community. They exist, and because they're serving a need that is, absent in other places. So, banking Black is like something that we, all talk about, that we're all proponents of, but there is also so much benefit for, the person who's on the other side of that to be able to build that relationship with their banker to benefit from it.
Certainly. Can you provide some examples of some successful initiatives that have contributed to narrowing the racial wealth gap within the Black business landscape?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because the gap is so big. There are initiatives that are trying to narrow it, but to date, we haven't really seen anything that we can point to that says this is a huge success and we just need more of it. I think there's corporate initiatives. There's some in startups like Guava that are trying to do work, but to really see that gap narrow, we need a multifaceted approach where it is corporate, there is startups, there's policy, all working in concert to focus and kind of narrow that wealth gap. We haven't seen that yet.
Yes. And speaking of Guava, I want to talk about the work that you're doing there. Can you provide an overview of your mission and how it has uniquely positioned itself to support the needs of these small Black business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, Guava is a growth engine for Black entrepreneurs. Our first product is a business checking account. So it's a digital first checking account. People can open a business bank account within about 10 minutes, fully online, fully mobile, just really creating greater access to that financial product. We've embedded a lot of insights into the checking account. So just making it easy for people to understand the inflows and outflows of cash so that they can make better decisions about their business. using that Guava account as a tool. And we just launched our community platform called Huddle, which brings all of the
Yes.
other resources to bear for entrepreneurs. So we know like a checking account is not going to make your business, right? It's going to mean that you like might have a decreased tax burden, but there's so many other things that you need as an entrepreneur to be successful. And often you're figuring it out on your own, right? Like you're going on Google to find a lawyer or to figure out like, do I do a LLC or S Corp? What's the difference, right? A lot of us are just doing this trial by fire, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so Huddle is a place for Black entrepreneurs to come together, share their collective genius with each other, share their experiences with each other, and also that we can bring experts into that space for those entrepreneurs. So we can do workshops and have done workshops on, building a business budget, on, the right legal structures for your business, marketing and branding, and all of these things that you think about constantly as an entrepreneur. And so you don't have to make unnecessary mistakes, that you can learn from others' expertise and experience. And so, bringing those two things together is at the ethos of like what Guava is about: financial access to financial resources and community support to help entrepreneurs grow and scale is all that we're focused on here. And I'm really excited about that recent launch and things that we have, in the pipeline to come.
I love it. And I love the work that you are doing. And you're welcome. And I love what you said in the beginning. Like you have this passion for helping our community and just the things that you're doing and also the things that you've done in the past. It's so great. And Kelly, I want to know, like, for you, how do you think addressing the racial wealth gap tie in the broader economic empowers the Black communities?
Yeah, so when I think about the racial wealth gap and Black entrepreneurship, there's just like there's an opportunity for the country. Like there's a macro opportunity here, right? We have a small business sector that employs like 99% of people in the country, that most of us work at companies that are technically small and medium businesses, right? That sector is so inequitable, right? When we think about Black entrepreneurs, Black women starting businesses faster than anybody else in the country, but also having inequitable access to capital, struggling to fund their businesses, all of these things just like don't make logical sense, right? And the impact that has on the country is like a loss in business revenue. There's like studies that show that inequitable access to capital has cost us collectively $13 trillion in lost business revenue. So it's not just like a Black problem, right? It's a everybody problem. It's an American problem that we have a small business sector that like fuels our economy that people are not participating equally in, right? Or don't have equal access for the growth and the opportunities in that sector. And that's not okay. Like, it's not okay for Black entrepreneurs who, we feel it deeply. Like, I'm a Black woman. So everything I'm talking about, I like live and experience. But it also means that like the rest of the country is not able to experience what it could look like to have equitable small business sector. Like, I just think about what that reality is, or will be rather, when we're able to have flourishing Black businesses around the country. Like, that's exciting to me. And it's exciting to a lot of other people too, right? Like, come on.
Like you said, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense that we're going through this, and it makes sense to focus on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so now let's talk about some of the challenges that are faced by Black entrepreneurs when it comes to the banking system. So you've built this amazing solution. I want to talk about what systemic challenges do Black entrepreneurs often encounter when they're seeking financial services from traditional banks?
Yeah, and a lot of the, I like to kind of ground us in the fact that this is not pointing fingers at any like particular person or particular institution. Like, in this regard, it really is systemic. And, I use FICO as an example, the credit score FICO, which feels like it's metric based, right? It feels like it's non-judgmental, that It's like, you pay your bills on time, you have a good score, you don't, you have a bad score. When in reality, it uses historical data. So you'll find that women will often have a lower FICO score. So there's examples of like a husband and wife with very similar financial, similar income, similar payment history, and the wife will have, a lower score than the man because 50 years ago, a woman needed a man to get a credit card application. And so there's just like less data that FICO was using to determine creditworthiness. That for another example is zip codes are used to determine creditworthiness as well. And we know the history of like redlining and like decreased property values in Black neighborhoods. So like if you are a Black person or a person living in a, quote unquote Black neighborhood with that zip code, there's a chance that your FICO score might be lower because of where you live. And so things like that are embedded in before people are making decisions about what you have access to, the system that determines creditworthiness is using historical data that is like grounded in racism, right? So like that's the landscape, right? Things like banking deserts are often like a one-to-one correlation with Black and brown neighborhoods where people don't have access to physical branch locations, mean that there's just like inequitable access, that you cannot walk into a bank branch because there are none in your neighborhood, right? That's a problem when you're talking about building a relationship and understanding what options are in front of you. If you can't do that because there isn't one and there's been a divestment from your neighborhood, then how do you, there isn't a level playing field in that regard. So I feel like I rambled a little bit.
No, it makes sense. Yeah. Because I think that, especially when you bring up like the FICO and all of those things, it's like people, sometimes we don't look at it from that perspective, or sometimes we just don't know. And I think it's important to highlight that because it is educating for many of us. So people can look at it from one view, but it's like, okay, let's look at this from a bird's eye view.
Yeah. I mean, it's real easy to just to ignore the historical implications of things, right? Like we kind of forget that these systems were in place for decades and, for generations. And we like to think that everything is unbiased, but that's not always the case, right? Like the algorithm is only as good as the data that you put into it. And if you're putting in biased data, then the output will also be biased, right? So I think it really is a moment where people are starting to look critically at these tools that we have that we deem as unbiased that may not actually be so, and finding better ways to, create more equity and create greater access for people. I'm very, very passionate about it, obviously.
I love it. And so, Kelly, do you think that there are any regulatory or policy changes that could help alleviate the disparities Black entrepreneurs face within the banking system?
Yeah. I mean, talking about FICO specifically, again, I think that, there isn't, we're not going to say, we can legislate that people don't use FICO, but we can encourage alternative ways to assess creditworthiness that can augment FICO. And so I think from a policy perspective, being able to encourage lending institutions and financial institutions to broaden their scope and to look outside of that one metric to determine who gets access and who doesn't could be a really great first step in, again, creating better access for everybody.
Yes, love that. And what strategies or best practices would you recommend for Black entrepreneurs to navigate and to overcome these obstacles effectively, especially knowing that they exist?
Yeah, I mean, in most cases, network matters. I know we like to think that it doesn't, but it often does, right? So get to know the financial institution that you're working with, identify relationships, maybe other entrepreneurs, groups of entrepreneurs, plug for Huddle and Guava here. But even if it isn't, you know, places where you can learn from other people, where you can, if you're applying for a loan at a bank or a community, you know, CDFI, get to know those folks, call them, build relationships. It opens doors. It allows you to leapfrog. It helps you alleviate unnecessary mistakes And so like that, if there was one piece of advice, that would be it resoundingly.
Love it. And now let's get into building a strong financial foundation for your business. So we like to break it down again over here. So let's start with the basics. Why is it crucial for new or early Black entrepreneurs to establish a dedicated business bank account separate from their personal finances?
Yes, yes, yes. Say it for the people in the back. There's a huge tax liability if you are muddling your funds. So it could mean that you are paying more in taxes. It could mean that there are tax violations that you are guilty of. It also could mean like the inverse, that you're not getting tax breaks as a business owner. Certain industries and certain places have specific tax breaks. Certain types of businesses, have different tax burdens. And so just from a financial perspective, separating those funds just means that you're able to pay less, potentially pay less taxes, write off certain things, certain activities that you won't be able to do that if you don't have a dedicated account for it. When you are applying for any kind of credit product, whether that's a credit card, a loan, a merchant cash advance, one of the first things that you're asked for is your bank statements. And if you don't have that, again, there's like no history of your business practices, because ultimately that bank account is showing the inflow and outflow of funds. It's saying like, I made X number of dollars and I spent X number of dollars in black and white. And so you want to be able to have that record really clean, so that you can use that as a reference point for whatever institution. And then just from a planning perspective, as a business owner, you want to be able to identify really clearly, again, your income, the revenue that you're generating from your business activities, as well as your expenses, so you can make that budget and you can project your expenses and your income or your revenue, and have a really well run and organized company.
Certainly, yes. I love that. Organization be organized too. Now, speaking of, speaking of, so somebody's like, okay, got it. When they're ready for that step, the next step of opening their bank account. So what specific documentation or information should entrepreneurs have when they're ready to open that business bank account?
Yeah, I mean, and this is something we make really easy with Guava, because if you've incorporated your business, you want to have your documents of incorporation and your EIN. If you've done that, and you can do that really easily online, and we point people in directions to help them do that. If you haven't incorporated your business and you're selling your waist beads on Etsy or whatever, but you're ready to take the next step and you haven't gone through the process of incorporation, you can still open a business bank account with Guava. We make it really easy for folks to do that. And so if you go on and open an account and you're kind of operating your business, and then later on decide to incorporate, you can update your account with us, but we don't use that as a barrier, because we know it's really important for people to do it. And often, folks are using their PayPal or Venmo or Cash App, and we want to make sure that people have a really good business hygiene from jump. And so just making it really easy for folks to do that was super important for us.
Love that. And I have a question regarding, are there any industries where people might have an extra step? So, for example, I had a friend who's in the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
And theirs was a little different. Yeah. So
yeah, cannabis is a big one. And I'm from New York, and so we all kind of saw what the war on drugs has done to our communities, and so seeing the cannabis industry, I want to advocate for Black folks in the cannabis industry, basically. And because it's still federally not legal yet, there are very few financial institutions that will bank cannabis businesses. I know that there are a few in Oklahoma. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but even for us, like, we can't bank cannabis businesses because it's federally not regulated yet, or it's still illegal. But I'm really keen for that to change, because I think that's an industry that, again, is pretty inequitable. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to see more Black entrepreneurs participating in it now that it's becoming legal and it's, a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah, I literally just found this out this week because I'm like trying to help her
It's
find a bit, and I'm
wild.
like, what? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm so glad. Just in time
Yeah, but
conversation.
yeah,
But that was.
absolutely.
Are there
It's
any?
definitely something
Mm-hmm.
that's on our radar. Given my perspective on it, I want to be able to serve those entrepreneurs
Yeah.
as well, and so like definitely something that we want to be doing in the coming months and year.
Yes, love that. Are there any other industries that you can think of that people
Yeah, and we kind of
might have an
listed out
extra
for
step?
folks. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of obscure, so like stockbrokers, certain types of like precious metals, taxi medallions.
Mm-hmm.
But like for the most part, cannabis comes up as a big one for our community. But for the most part, not
Mm-hmm.
many others at all.
Okay, got it. Love it. All right. So, we have a lot of early stage entrepreneurs who listen to the podcast and they may have limited experience in financial matters. So how would you advise them to educate themselves to make more informed banking decisions?
Yeah, join Huddle. um, Other
Yes.
than that, I would definitely, encourage folks to, I think when you are starting out, the big hurdle
Mm-hmm.
is kind of determining what is important when, right? And so the early stages, like making sure you understand, all of your opportunities for revenue and all of the expenses that you will incur or might incur is really important. Your pricing is really important. And I would start there, right? Like start with the fundamentals of your business. And as it grows and as it expands, there will be other things that become important, right? Like different types of financing might become important. Inventory management might become important later on, depending on the type of business. But really understanding the unit economics, right? How much does it cost you to make a thing and sell the thing is absolutely important as you're starting out, and the most like critical fundamental for you to have a good handle on.
Yes, I love that you said that, breaking down what's important and when, because that's so key. We have, like I said, a lot of people who are just starting out in their journey, and it can get overwhelming for people. They're like, okay, I need to do
It
this. I
is
heard this person online say I
overwhelming.
need to do this.
Yes.
Yeah,
There's like
so
so much
glad
advice.
this is,
There's so many blog
yes.
posts, like all this stuff, right? That it says like
Uh-huh.
if you're an entrepreneur, this is what you need to do, and everybody has like a different recommendation for you. Like
Yes.
honestly, the thing that I always say to people when they ask me similar questions is just start, right? There
Mm-hmm.
are things that we know to be true that you like get a bank account, right? Know how much you're going to
Mm-hmm.
charge for the thing, have a website, like those kind of things that we know just kind of as consumers of products that we have to do. But just start, find other entrepreneurs for you to learn from and ask questions of, and you'll start to ask more informed, more nuanced questions, and you'll have more clarity on the direction you need to go and the path that you need to go down. A lot of us like get so overwhelmed in the early stages that we don't even start.
Mm-hmm.
We're fearful of talking about it. We don't want to tell people because it's not fully formed yet, right? Like I've had the idea for Guava for a long time, and it took a long time for me to like get the confidence to just start. And from there, that momentum kind of drives for movement.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Great advice. Great advice. And so, Kelly, you work with people opening their bank accounts. So, what are some of the common pitfalls or misconceptions that entrepreneurs should be aware of when they are opening and managing a business bank account?
Yeah, pitfalls. There aren't many. I think some people are a little weary about like the documentation part, but for the most part, it's like opening up a regular bank account or a personal bank account. You need your all personal information. So like your social security number, your birthday, your driver's license, right? Like all of that information. Again, if you're incorporated, then we'll need information about your business as well. If you're not, then it really is just kind of like about you and who you are that we check. In terms of managing that account, I encourage people to have an account where you are where all of your revenue is coming in, so you can have, again, that full picture of your business. And we make, again, really easy for people to kind of see that with their Guava account. I also encourage people, I hear of people having like multiple accounts for different things, but when you're starting, having one place to go to see how much money you're making, how much money you're spending, where you're spending the most, right? Like, what are those categories? What's the trends over time? So you can understand how, your raw materials might be impacting your revenue or your profit, how, maybe you spend a lot more on travel and business lunches and dinners this month and you need to cut back next month, right? Like, being able to have those insights is really helpful, especially early on. And, at every phase, they're important. And so, we've embedded the ability to categorize your transactions so that you can see that really easily without having to like download it into a spreadsheet and do all that work yourself. And so that, I think in terms of like, I wouldn't call that a pitfall, but I think that's something that people can do really early on to start building the habit of, having really good, business financial hygiene.
All right. And when it comes to choosing between online and traditional banking, of course, you do online banking. What would you say are the benefits of online banking first before I go to the second part?
Yeah, I mean, it's easily accessible, right? It's in your pocket. So we're not like walking into bank branches for things for the most part. Most of our, even our transactions are happening digitally. We're, paying for something online. It allows you just like a faster cycle to be able to, again, see those transactions, ingest the insights, make a snap decision really quickly. Often you'll find like traditional institutions are not as, tech savvy, like their interfaces aren't as good as some of the digital, the neobanks or digital banks. And so like that's, truly one of the huge benefits of having a digital bank account.
And what factors should entrepreneurs consider based on their business needs and goals?
Yeah. I think like when you're choosing a bank in general, whether it's online or not, I would just, ensure the two questions, like what are their products? And so what products do you need today? Right. So often we'll, say like, oh, well, like I need a credit card and a loan and a mortgage. I'm like, are you doing that to start your business today? And if not, then, how do you quickly get the thing that you need today? And then the other thing is like, where can you build a relationship, right? So, we talked about bank deserts earlier where, it's difficult to physically get to a bank branch and therefore you don't have the opportunity to develop a relationship with the people who you're banking with. And so I would encourage folks to find an institution that allows for that. Where that institution, that company is investing in them and their business so that they can help them make the best choices. Because ultimately, like that's the real value of that relationship, right? It's not just a place to hold your money. It's a place to help you navigate building your business, right? Your success really does mean our success. And so having a relationship with that kind of institution will ensure that you can ask questions of somebody and there will be like somebody to ask those questions of, right? That's invested in your business, that can make, introductions for you, help you find your lawyer, help you find your accountant, right? Like all of those things that we kind of don't take advantage of or don't know that are available for us to take advantage of, are really true and definitely, again, something that is at the core of how we think about, our member relationships with Guava.
Beautiful. And speaking of Guava, I want to talk more now about your journey and, starting this to serve this need. This is it seems such huge undertaking. We talked about the systemic barriers that we face when it comes to finances in the Black community. So for you, you spoke about it taking you a long time to launch Guava. So how did you go from, okay, I'm just going to do this thing to launching something that you've raised $1 million, right? Plus, probably now.
Yeah.
Yes. So talk about that.
I mean, how much time do we have?
We got some time.
So definitely. And, I'm trying to think about like, there wasn't like a single moment where I said, I'm just going to do it. It was like a series of small steps that I started taking that led me to leave my job, right? Basically, because that was the moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to give notice at my job, which was super scary to do during a pandemic. But before that, it was whiteboarding with a friend who had come into town. And I was like, I'm kind of thinking about something. It's not really formed yet, right? Like even having the courage to say that was a big step. And then just talking to potential customers and learning about their experience, like literally going out in Brooklyn and talking to business owners, calling my friends in different cities and talking about their experience with banks, with getting capital, like all of those experiences to really understand, beyond my own and beyond my friends and family, what the broader landscape was for Black entrepreneurs to really feel confident in the solution that I was building. At that point, each step made me a little bit more confident to the point where I said, okay, I'm ready to do this full time. I'm ready to, go in front of investors and pitch this idea. And I'm ready to give my resignation in at my job. Right. So it wasn't me just starting out and saying screw it, I'm gonna leave my job and my health insurance. It was all the small steps ahead of that before it was even fully formed. Right. Where I just
pause. So you left your job before you launched?
I left my job on February 19th, 2021, and we launched in December of 2022. So yeah, I left my job.
Oh my God. That is amazing. Okay.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, my family think I'm insane. But I left my job. We raised a little bit of money. We built the product. We tested the product for a long time. It's a digital bank. So I want to be clear. There's regulation. So we're a digital banking platform. And there's regulation and compliance involved. So, it did take some time for us to build everything and ensure that we were building it safely. And so that took a while. And that was just grinding kind of quietly for a long time. We got a little bit of press here and there. We did some marketing and testing things. But we've been in market since December of last year, which has been, super exciting for people to be able to open their Guava accounts and now join Huddle. But yeah, it's been a fun ride so far. I'm excited for what's next.
Yes, I love that. And I'm so glad that you shared that story because that is a breakthrough for someone who's thinking, oh my, I have to have this or it has to be like that. And, like you said, built quietly for a while. Yeah. And then also, you took that leap and that bet and it worked.
Yeah. So I mean, I will say that, I am not very risk averse, obviously. So I'm willing to kind of jump to see what's down there. But not everybody's like that. And I respect that. And so for other people, it might look like, they wouldn't leave their jobs until it's launched, right? Or they wouldn't, risk looks different for everybody. And I think it's a matter of knowing what your risk tolerance is, but also pushing yourself a little bit. And so maybe that's just talking about it sooner than you feel comfortable talking about it is the risk that I always encourage people to take. It doesn't cost you anything to fumble a pitch, to your grandmother or your auntie. It helps you, though, get it right if you can start to explain it to your family members what you're doing. And they're excited about it. That might mean you're onto something.
I love that. And how was that journey for you? I know, of course, your decision to raise capital. If you could just talk about that. And then how has it been for you in terms of growing?
Yeah, I had actually worked in venture capital prior to starting Guava, so it was familiar territory, although I will say that people that I know and still know said no to me, and that was fine. It was that's part of the experience. It did mean, though, that I had a clearer path. I knew how I wanted to raise. I knew how to kind of construct a fundraise and navigate it a little bit better. So I'm, was really regimented about the types of, investment funds that I talked to at certain stages, the types of funds, whether they invest at that stage, if they invest in, this type of company, if they are, mission aligned is really important for me. I talk about our mission all the time, and I want to have aligned investors. That might not be true for every company and every person. For me, it is. And so being really clear about the types of investors that you want to have at the table, making that list, then literally I made a list in a spreadsheet, and I went on and found people that were connected to them and asked for intros if I didn't know them directly. And so it was very, very regimented, which I felt uncomfortable sharing a spreadsheet and saying can you put your name next to the people that you can intro me to?
Yes.
Literally, that's what I did, and still do. Whenever I'm raising money, it feels awkward, but it makes it really easy for people to help you.
Yes.
And that's a really big thing of fundraising. Make it easy for people to help you. Write an intro email in the third person so you can just copy and paste it and they can do the same to intro you. We're all super busy. And so if you're thinking about fundraising, I would just say, again, whoever you're reaching out to, make it really, really easy for them to support what you're doing. Be really clear about your ask. And, have your templates ready to go so you can turn it around really quickly.
I love that. Beautiful, beautiful journey. And you've created such an amazing platform and solution. For you, how has it been? You're welcome. How has it been to see the impact that you've been able to make, and talk about some of the impacts that you've been able to make?
It's been exciting and disorienting. And, I have really high hopes and expectations for myself. So I'm still okay, great. We're not celebrating too long because we got a lot more to do, is often my attitude. But, I think about, your question made me think about this workshop that we had a couple months ago on building a business budget. And, for us, it was all right, we're going to walk through the spreadsheet, tell people how to think about constructing that budget, how to utilize that as a tool to forecast and to compare it to actual, so that they're constantly thinking about, their cash balance and, how to, better finance their business, et cetera. And the thing that we didn't appreciate until after was that people were really intimidated by spreadsheets in general, and us breaking it down in this really clear and simple way helped a lot of folks just get over that initial fear of I don't know what this is, and just say it's, this means that. All you do is copy that here, just making it really accessible. And now for people to say oh yeah, I used the template that y'all gave for my budget, and it was super helpful. It was oh wow, this is it. And then for people to kind of reinforce that what you're doing is helping them is always impactful, and the thing that you kind of go back to when you're having an off day or you are in a funk. It's just okay, actually there are people on the other end of this that are benefiting from the work that we're doing, and that keeps us going. I know that's true for me. I know that it's true for the team.
Yes, I love that. I love it. And so we have, like I mentioned, a lot of people who are just starting out. For someone who's just starting out or fairly new to their business, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say talk about it. Even when you're a little uncomfortable, when you start thinking oh, it's not right yet. I don't want to talk about, I don't want to tell anybody yet. Tell somebody, it could be your best friends. It could be your mom, your partner. Being able and comfortable talking about your business or your idea is really that first step you're taking, right? Because it gets you comfortable, but it also gives you feedback on how people are understanding what you're creating. They might give you insight on the problem and how they experience it. Talk to potential customers. Ask about their problems. You want to make sure that what you're creating is actually solving a problem for other people. So talk to people that have that problem and understand, all the nuances that are there. Even if you're not ready to leave your job or launch the website, you can be doing that that early research is super important.
Love it. Great advice. Great advice. And Kelly, for you as a leader and entrepreneur, are there any favorite tools or resources that have been helpful in your entrepreneur journey?
Oh, so many. One that I found myself constantly going back to for inspiration is this. I listen to podcasts all the time. Obviously, I'm on podcasts right now, right? So whoever's listening, I'm sure y'all listen to podcasts too. The How I Built This podcast has been one that I constantly go back to. Find nuggets of value and just hearing other entrepreneurs' stories. Whether it's just like their tenacity and resilience or how somebody navigated, a really sticky situation has been definitely like super valuable for me. And, the one podcast that I turn to when I've like find myself like in a funk, I'm just like, let me listen to that story one more time.
Right.
I love hearing that. There's a book again, similarly that I like turn to often. It's called Build. Is by Tony Fadell. I might be mispronouncing his name. And you can read it chronologically. You can like skip around to different chapters, and each chapter is kind of like it's his career journey, and so it also kind of maps someone's like entrepreneurial journey potentially, right? So like how you perform as a manager, as a founder, as a individual contributor, how you think about product development, all of those things that kind of come up at different times. I find it a really valuable book with super, great lessons to kind of use as reference points, as inspiration. I really like that book as well. So those are like my two recommendations there.
Love it. I am definitely.
And if we have time for a third, we have time for a third. Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, his autobiography or biography, Shoe Dog. I recommend this book all the time to people, entrepreneurs or not. It's such a great story. And it's like an unusual founder story, I think, because we often hear about like these like super young, like genius founders who like built this great thing, and it just feels inaccessible. Yeah. And his story was like, he was kind of like, figuring it out for a long time, like ran track kind of good. And then like over time, came into what was Nike and built what was Nike, but it was through a lot of like customer discovery, a lot of like personal discovery and hard work. It's not this like fantastical story that feels unachievable. And to have built something as great as Nike, it just for me was like really motivating to say like, actually that kind of success is attainable for like quote unquote regular people.
Yeah. I am loving it. I definitely have to. Now you're gonna make me really listen to it. My friend bought me the audio version of
Shoe Dog.
Not it's yes, and I could not.
I listened to the audio book. No,
you did. Okay,
go back. Yes, listen to it.
I like podcasts, but I'm like with books, it's just totally different. So I'm gonna listen. Okay.
Yes, listen to it. Yeah, I actually listened to the audiobook of Build too. So.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to put those in the show notes. Thank you for sharing those. And now let's get into a round of not so serious business. Some fun questions.
Love it.
Okay. So first question is, if you were a superhero, what would be your special power and what would your superhero name be?
Ooh, flight. I would be able to fly.
Okay.
And my superhero name would be, oh my God, I don't know. I've never thought of my superhero name. I don't know.
The flying is good. Is good.
Okay.
All right. And then if your business had a theme song that played every time you entered the room, what would that song be and why?
Oh my God. There's this song, Win, Win, Win. Okay, cut that out.
I'm definitely not cutting that out.
Cut it out.
Anything else I told you we could cut, but not that one.
I want to say it's not Jay Electronica. Wait, who is it? Do you know this song? Oh my God! Wait, if I go out of
I was thinking DJ Khaled, Win, and Asa, but that's not it.
Wait. Okay, I'm gonna come right back. I'm gonna come right back. I'm gonna try to find a song. Okay, I'm back. So, Win by
Okay,
J
what's it?
Rock. Win by J Rock.
Okay.
Like, it pumps me.
Win by
It actually is my theme song. I'm just like constantly listening to that song in the car on like
Uh-huh.
full volume. And I feel like
Mm.
anybody like starting a company, running a company, doing anything should listen to it all the time.
To listeners. Definitely going to check that one out as well. And then, which TV show do you wish still aired?
First thing that came to mind, Martin.
Wait, this is so weird. Okay, so today, like, this is a get into the podcast world, but you're my second guest of the day. And the first person said Martin too. That is so funny. And nobody has
Really?
ever said Martin, but I love it. Yeah, y'all are different type. Y'all are my people. Cause
That's
yes,
funny. Yeah, I could
it's a
always watch a
classic
good episode.
of Martin. Yes,
Yes.
love that. And then finally, what does it mean to you to be Black in business?
It means, kind of continuing on in like a really awesome legacy. I think about entrepreneurs who came before me, who have built great things, or who had the like pleasure to build great things. And continuing that legacy is really what it means for me.
I love it. And people who are listening, they're like, how can we find you? How can we connect with you? And how can we support you? So please do share.
Yes, you can find us on any platform, every platform at Join Guava. If you're an entrepreneur starting out or looking for a business bank account, please, obviously we welcome you to join us and open a business bank account with us. It takes about 10 minutes. And if you're interested in the community as well of other Black entrepreneurs, Huddle is free to join right now. We're looking for people to, encourage the conversation, to share in the resources. So lots of ways for you to get involved. Happy to have you. Come on for the ride.
Love it. And Kelly, this has been so amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show and pouring into us. Can't wait to see all the amazing things that you continue to do. So thank you for being a guest on the Black to Business podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation.
And there you have it, folks. What an incredible episode, right? We just scratched the surface of banking on your business, building a strong financial core. And I hope that you learned so much from Kelly, just as I did. I hope that you were inspired. I love that she shared her personal journey on just taking the leap and figuring it out and having a huge success. So before we wrap up, I want to give some quick recaps of the takeaways from our conversation today. We learned about the unique financial struggles that Black entrepreneurs face and why it's crucial to forge stronger relationships with your banking institution. We explored the vital role that Black-owned banks play in supporting our communities. And Kelly highlighted why banking Black isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a strategic move for your success. We uncovered the essential documentation that you need to open a business bank account. And of course, we delved into the advantages of digital banking compared to traditional banking for your business. So if you're hungry for more insights and resources, or if you'd like to connect with Kelly and Guava, head over to blacktobusiness.com/170 and you'll find all those details there. And hey, I want to give you a heads up about next week's episode. We got an incredible guest, another powerful topic, and I can't wait to dive into that conversation with you, so make sure that you tune in. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the Black to Business family. Keep thriving and keep building, and I will chat with you next week, same time, same place.